Our group have conducted total 5 interviews of IBM employees. Open coding was conducted individually based on interviewers' understanding and participants' choice of words. The next step is to conduct axial coding. To make it in line with our research question, we have categorized in several ways. Background information of the participant, including work positions and years of working experience, work environment before and during COVID situation, motivation and different factors, and lastly, productivity and performance. Despite individual work from open coding, interviews have similarities, such as focusing on importance of social interactions and the experiences of working from home. Therefore, some actual codes from the first 2 interviews were used for the other 3 interviews, but to emphasize those common aspects from the interview, we have created additional codes to present its importance.
While coding the interviews, we wrote memos. Both participants were able to answer all questions. There were no questions which caused trouble or required a lot of time to think. Only the tone of voice of the interviewee could help to understand how the interview flow goes. Conducting interviews via Zoom allowed limited methods of establishing contact with the participant. Normally, the body language and eye contact could be used for analysis as well. However, applying some theory and taking into consideration the words participants used to answer helped us to make reflections on the data we collected. Participant 1 mentioned that the amount of responsibilities and tasks to do are among the incentives to stay productive and enhancers of motivation to work. Also, the importance of providing support in terms of organizing online events unrelated to work was mentioned. This helps to increase employees' engagement, their active health, and help people who might have felt lonely during this self-isolation period. All of those were found helpful to keep up employees' productivity levels. Whereas participant 1 didn't mention monetary incentives at all, participant 2 did. He also mentioned that he is motivated by the positive environment and community aimed at achieving one goal, which could be part of McClelland's theory of needs. Both participants mentioned that they miss small conversations at work, which applies to Elton Meyer's motivation theory.
Now we move on to selective codes. Selective codes should make connections between actual codes, which represent different categories. They should capture the meaning of the interviewee's answers and afterwards form a theory. At first, we noticed that the pre-COVID work experience with working from home allows an easier adaptation to the work environment during the pandemic. This represents the first selective code and includes the interviewee's background information, their personal working experience, as well as their pre-COVID work environment. The content of these 3 axial codes shows that the implementation of working from home at IBM before the pandemic led to a smooth adaptation to working at home full-time. Most of the interviewees had already a separate office or were, at least, used to working outside the office. Furthermore, it was observed that internal incentives influence motivation, which forms another selective code. Every interviewee had their own personal incentives for accomplishing their work tasks, other than external ones such as money.
Okay, the third and last selective code is about how the work environment and motivation influence the productivity. Due to COVID, they were forced to only work from home. This changed their working environment. Fortunately, all our participants already had some experience with working from home. However, they missed the face-to-face interactions with the customers and the coffee talks during the breaks with their colleagues. The social interactions provided more motivation than the now online interactions. Because there were no other colleagues present in their workspace, they had to motivate themselves. But working from home also allowed them to be flexible. They could, for example, run personal errands in between work. Additionally, there was no wasted time due to traveling to the office. Lastly, the motivation directly influences the productivity of the workers. A higher motivation provides better productivity and better performance. Therefore, the changes in work environment influence the motivation, which then influence the productivity.
Last but not least, has our theoretical framework been validated looking at the findings mentioned before in this presentation? Diving into our theoretical framework, there can be stated that the motivation of employees is influenced by their working conditions. That's why, according to our theoretical framework, the motivation when working from home is less, because the working conditions at home are usually not optimal. However, the employees of IBM generally stated that working from home doesn't really influence their motivation, because IBM has provided the employees with good working conditions at home, even before the corona crisis. Additionally, a number of interviewees agreed that their deadlines and their goals keep them motivated, and due to their motivation, their productivity mostly stays the same. The only factor that affects their motivation is the lack of social contact. However, their managers did arrange some solutions for this, like a virtual coffee break every day. Altogether, there can be said that the changing working conditions due to the corona crisis do influence the motivation of employees to some extent. But these factors aren't decisive for the motivation of IBM employees.